Now we are starting to decipher a little bit more clear who should be buying and who should be selling, with the trade deadline less than a week away. So with that said, I'm going to lay out 5 trades that I think should happen, given these teams' current outlooks, and would be a win-win for all involved. Let's delve into it. The reigning defending World Series champions, Texas Rangers, have fluttered around 500 this entire season, just not at all looking like they're capable of even making the playoffs, let alone defending their chip, as they currently sit 6 games back, the final spot with 4 teams in front of them. And even with Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom on the precipice of coming back, I candidly don't think it'll be enough for them to climb back into relevance, and that's even assuming they pitch like their vintage selves, and given their age, I think that's a lot to ask. And even jumping off the minutiae of the season, I think the front office has earned the latitude, given what they did last season, to go out and sell some pieces if they don't think they can repeat. I think it's just the prudent move. That said, I love the idea of sending potential free agent reliever David Robertson to the Los Angeles Dodgers. David currently has a 2.83 ERA, and the Dodgers are all in on the season, and they could clearly use a pennant to supplement closer Evan Phillips and setup man Alex Vesia, because outside of those 2 arms, the bullpen is pretty bleak, and we all know in October you need a loaded pen to win. And as it pertains to Robertson as to why he'd be a good pickup, listen, he's been a hired gun a litany of times, even as recent as last season, with the Miami Marlins picking him off the New York Mets in their playoff push. Not obviously, he's no stranger to World Series ball as well, as he was a member of that iconic 2009 New York Yankees squad. The second trade that in my opinion needs to happen is 2 teams that we would not have perceived to be in this position, but I'll be damned. The Pittsburgh Pirates should be incessantly calling north of the border to the Toronto Blue Jays and ask for Vlad Guerrero Jr. Listen, it's no secret the Pirates A, have not shown a willingness to spend under owner Bob Nutting, and B, have trouble scoring runs. But they can remedy this in just one fell swoop by inserting Vlad in the 4-hole and replacing Rowdy Tellez in his sub-700 OPS self at first base. Vlad is under control for next season as well, so even if they fail to reach the playoffs this season, they have another shot with him next year. And even if it doesn't go well next season either, they can flip him at the deadline and recoup, 70-80% of the assets they shut out to Toronto this season, and a la what the Padres and GM AJ Preller did with Juan Soto, and Lord knows Bob Nutting wouldn't be opposed to that strategy. The move would finally show a scarred fan base in Pittsburgh that you actually care about winning, and take advantage of this window that you got with guys like Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, and Jared Jones in their rotation in their prime at bargain prices. And as it pertains to logic for the Jays, listen, it's the same old song and dance, right? They're in a loaded division, they haven't shown they can win. This iteration of Bo Bichette, George Springer, and Vlad just has not shown the ability to win. They are underachieving yet again. 2 behemoths with the Orioles and the Yankees right beside them, they're not going anywhere. So do you really believe once you give them massive extensions, it would presumably be over $100 million, right? So once you give them those extensions, you're going to have to presumably pare down the roster. So you think you're going to win that way when you're not winning with them on cheap deals? Obviously not. That's a rhetorical question. And even if you don't want to give them the extensions, then trade them now. Great. Bite the bullet and get the assets back. Let's make it happen. Josh Chisholm Jr. of the 32 games under 500 Miami Marlins has easily been one of the more polarizing players in all of baseball since his debut in 2020, after the trade with the Arizona Diamondbacks for starter Zach Gallen. And to be candid with you, although I do think his arrival has been good for the game overall, especially popularity-wise because of his flash and flair, it's rang a bit hollow this far, as he's amassed a career .248 average and just a 102 OPS plus, which is barely above league average, as you know. However, I still think he's obviously a good player and be an upgrade over a litany of others. And he's still got some upside at age 26, so he's an enticing chip, and obviously has 2.5 years left on his deal, which obviously amplifies his attractiveness. With all that said, I don't need to explain to you the rationale as to why the Marlins should trade him, given the state of the organization, and I love him going to the New York Yankees. Now, this isn't a very hot take, given recent sources have intimated that this is more than a possibility. But listen, that doesn't mean I can't co-sign that. Not everything online has to be combative. New York Yankees, despite their swoon prior to the All-Star break going 8-18, have World Series aspirations, and obviously is even heightened even more with the unknown future of Juan Soto. The time is now for them to capitalize on having Juan and Aaron in the same lineup together, and in doing so, trading for the bat they so desperately need is pertinent, and Jazz would slide right in at second base moving from center as the Marlins subtly showcased his ability to play second base. Still, as they moved him there prior to the All-Star break against the Cincinnati Reds. And listen, I wouldn't be reticent to trade Spencer Jones, their prized outfield prospect, who's ranked number 2 in the system, and I strongly surmise the Marlins would want him, given the platitudes I spewed about Jazz, and the reluctance to trade Jason Dominguez, their top prospect. Gotta trade at least one of them, so trade Spencer. If the Yankees pull this off, there's no telling me with a straight face that they can at least get to the ALCS. Now, despite the Rays technically being in the playoff race, as they sit 1 game over 500 and just 4.5 games back, I don't think even the staunchest of Rays fans, all 27 of you, truly believe they're good enough to win anything of significance this season. And it wouldn't have all shocked me if the Rays front office, at the very least, sell off a couple of relievers, and I believe it would be the prudent move to sell off even more than that and take advantage of a slanted seller's market. So who do they have to trade? Well, good question. There's been a decent amount of scuttlebutt pertaining to the availability of outfielder Randy Arozarena, but to me that's just asinine, given the down season he's currently in the midst of. With an average of .211 and an OPS of .694, you're just selling low, and it's idiotic, and I don't think the Rays are idiots. So to me, I would flip instead the guy who typically hits behind him, in Isaac Paredes. The Rays originally received him in a heist of a trade with the Detroit Tigers on April 4th, 2022. Isaac has put together 2.5 really good seasons for Tampa, culminating this year in an all-star bid as he hit 16 home runs and an OPS over .820 thus far. A year, by the way, after he hit 31 bombs and drove in 98. So if I'm in Tampa, I absolutely pounce on a trade for him and cash in on what I believe will be the height of his dominance. I don't think he'll improve. I could be wrong, obviously, what do I know? But I don't think he's going to get much better than this, so pounce on his value now, especially in a market so bereft of corner outfielders. They could get a haul, especially since he's not a free agent until after the 26th season. And for me, I think the New York Mets should be absolutely foaming at the mouth to acquire his services. Now you may be thinking about the scuttlebutt. The Mets have their cornerstone at third right now in Mark Vientos. And yeah, they do, but I'll be damned, look at this. Isaac has played in 67 games over the past 3 seasons at second base. Oh yeah, I know the Mets will be amenable to having a second baseman fill the void, with Jeff McNeil having a miserable season, as you know, hitting .207 with absolutely no power, as that's illuminated in his OPS of less than .570. If they had Isaac and hang on to Boulevard Pete, now all of a sudden you have a formidable lineup with Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, and JD Martinez. Listen, the Boston Red Sox have seemingly surprised every human in the world, even including their front office, as they didn't really believe in this team by not adding anybody of significance other than Tyler O'Neill this offseason. At the start of the season, they are 12 games over 500 right now, as they hold the third and final wildcard spot, and they've won a myriad of different ways thus far, as manager Alex Cora has illuminated on a litany of times. At the beginning of the season, it was because of the rotation. Then it was the home run ball, led by Rafael Devers, Tristan Casas, and alluded to Tyler O'Neill, and recently, the last month or so, it's been by way of the stolen bags, with Jarren Duran leading the way and his 23 steals. With that said, that same rotation that led them to a hot start in April and early into May has started to flounder lately, especially Brian Bello and his 5.32 ERA and Cooper Criswell with his 4.5 ERA. And there's a pitcher out there in the AL Central that could remedy that. No, not Garrett Crochet. It's going to take a lot more than the guy I'm talking about in Jack Flaherty, Detroit Tigers arm, who touts a stellar 3.13 ERA and a whip under 1. Listen, he's shown flashes of absolute greatness, harking back to his St. Louis days and his prime self, and with the Tigers way out of the race, obviously 14 games under 500, it makes all the sense in the world for AJ Hinch to brace himself for the loss of his potential free agent ace. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe not the most glamorous trades, but at least in my opinion would be win-win swaps for all parties involved. Nonetheless, the trade deadline should be enticing as hell. Very exciting. I'm ready. Get your popcorn. And let's see if any of these trades actually come to fruition. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching, and peace.